And good morning, America, my beautiful America. This is Common Sense America. I am Eden Hill, and thank you so much for being here this morning. It is just at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. This show is weekdays on Talk Radio, Defenders Live Talk Radio, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time weekdays. It is also live streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Rumble. And we're so glad to have you here. It is Thursday. It is October the 13th, 2022. And I want to tell you, I am so grateful for each and every one of you, the amazing audience that we have built in just over a month's period of time. I am grateful for all of you who are participating in this show, who have been supporting this show, whether it is post-show analysis and sharing your thoughts and guest ideas, or if it's your interaction in time during the live show. We are grateful for you. Yesterday, we had quite a treat with film producer Jeff Hayes, and today we are featuring an amazing number one international best-selling author, Brian Searcy. He is a retired colonel in the United States Air Force, and you all know how much I love God, country, and family. And as you see, the American flag right behind me, and tributes to those who have fought in our family on the front lines for this nation. You know how much the veteran and military space is important to this show as we recognize those who have served. And so I am grateful to have such an instrumental leader in many different spaces join us this morning. It will be our full segment this morning. And we are going to be talking about situational awareness. We are going to be talking about what it's like in this day and time. The book that I want you to pick up on Amazon or at your local bookstore, it is included on the comment section of our live feed right now. It is called Prepare for the Real World. And so we are going to be bringing over to the show just in a few minutes, Brian Searcy, who is going to be talking about situational awareness in our churches, in our homes, in our communities, in our going to the store, and in our travel. There are so many different aspects that we need to be aware of. And being a veteran spouse to someone who served in the Army and also in the National Guard, I have learned in many aspects when we go into restaurants, when we go into supermarkets, when we are in crowds, when we go to a parade, situation awareness. What is around us? Where are our exits? How do we prepare for this? And what is to come? And so I'm eager to speak with Brian this morning about where this came from and the platform in which he found that this was necessary. Obviously, we do know it's necessary. There's something else I wanted to make your attention known if you had not heard the term swatting. My friend who is based in Florida, and as you all know, Hurricane Ian really destroyed the southern parts of Florida. They are rising up and they are fighting back with recovery efforts, with Mercy Chefs serving amazing comfort foods, with even Ivanka Trump being down there yesterday serving with Mercy Chefs. But something was brought to my attention. My friend was out working. She's based in Sarasota County. And she called me and she said, we were on lockdown because of swatting. And I said, what is swatting? What are you talking about? She said, all the schools were on lockdown. And I said, well, why were the schools on lockdown? Was this, and I instantly went to domestic terrorists. That's what I thought. So the story that was posted in South Florida, what is swatting? A phone call hoax causes lockdowns at schools across South Florida. Swatting is a hoax that involves making false 911 calls to provoke large responses by law enforcement groups such as SWAT teams, hence the name. So, on that note, I wanted to make you aware of what is happening, and I'm curious if it is happening around our nation as well. So on that note, we're going to bring over to the show, as I've been also on the stream showing you Brian Searcy and his book cover. I am posting up now. He is the author of Prepare for the Real World. The world is no longer a safe place. I just emphasized on that aspect. And I also have down there the Amazon link to go and purchase this book. This is a necessity. And so Good morning, sir. It's so nice to meet you. So nice to have you. Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Yeah. So I did a little intro as I know you were sitting there waiting, and we have a lot to discuss this morning. I mean, I have pages and pages of notes. I'm really eager to dig in with you on your new book. It came out March 2022. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's fairly recently released. Had some good stuff going at the beginning. Now there's just the normal stuff. I'm promoting it when I'm out speaking and on
Mhm.
shows like yours and those types of things. And it's meant to be an eye-opening book. It's an
Mhm.
introduction, but it's not the ending of the training and the learning and development of situational awareness.
Well, let's talk about the training piece really quickly. I noticed that you have your own group. Is that what you are doing through your group? Could you speak to that?
Yeah, so I travel around the United States. Actually, I've been to a couple of international countries as well, talking about how you need to learn what situational awareness is. You see, every single threat that we face in our society today, whether it's suicide, sexual harassment, bullying, human trafficking, the active shooter that's we're going to talk a little bit about with the swatting that is going
Mhm.
on. All of those things continually get worse, yet we have active shooter training. We have policies and procedures to harden our schools, to harden our churches. We have human trafficking month. But if we have all this, why is it still getting worse? Why isn't it not getting better?
Mhm.
And that's because of traditional training that we've been doing for 40 years. Like I've got Einstein's definition of insanity over my shoulder. We've been doing the same thing over and over again
Mhm.
and expecting different results.
Mhm.
We have been dealing with symptoms and not dealing with problems. And we
Mhm.
have not empowered people to learn how to, for them to become their own first responder. So our program is different. It starts with an introduction to situational awareness.
Mhm.
We introduce what all the threats are. We introduce the 10 critical personal skills that you need to have situational awareness, know by the way to be successful in life. And then we have a year-long program so that you learn and develop the habits and the behaviors that are necessary to have and use situational awareness, practice situational awareness, again, so you can be the first responder, take responsibility for your own safety, the safety of your family, and then
Mhm.
the safety of your community.
Well, let me ask you about being that first responder. These things that you are bringing to the table through your book and through your group and the training and the skills, what was the foundation that brought you to this point? Was it your military career? Was it a combination?
Yeah, so my 23 years in the military, and I retired in 2010, and then subsequently all the work that I've been doing since I retired, I've got 37 years of leadership and training experience and having to deal with stressful situations and being prepared. One of the things I talk about all the time is worry is not the same as preparation, and that
Mhm.
preparation overcomes fear.
Mhm.
Um, One of the key things I truly did learn in the military is that you have to have repetitive, reinforcing training in order to establish those habits and behaviors. To
Mhm.
go fly airplanes, we had extensive training, as I'm sure you can
Yeah.
imagine, just like the training that your husband went through in the
Yeah.
Army. And it wasn't we sat down in a class for an hour, poof, you're ready to go fly the airplane. It was a long time, but
Yeah.
then we had to have repetitive, continuous training where we had to continually practice those types of things that we would have to do if we ever gotten into a stressful situation, whether it's an emergency or it's combat. And
Mhm.
so I've taken that mentality to how we talk about and empower the learning of situational awareness, because I don't even like to call it training. It's learning because each individual learns situational awareness for themselves.
Mhm.
Now, it's a God-given gift that we all have, but unfortunately today, less than 1 in 7 people actually know that they have it, and
Mhm.
they certainly don't know how to use it, and they don't know how to practice it.
Well, one thing I've noticed, I was reading up, I want to pick up your book. I do not have a copy yet, but I was doing my research on your book, and two things that stood out to me: the gut instinct that the Lord gives us, and the hairs on your neck when they rise. And I do a lot of traveling. I have significantly cut back on my travel due to my location. We live by Camp Lejeune. I have my own business here, and I also have this show. But in that, when I do travel, I'm preparing to go up north this weekend. I have to go through DC, go to Falls Church, head to Pennsylvania, go to Bucks County. And as I was thinking through that, with all the traveling measures, whether you fly, whether you drive, whether you take the train, situational awareness, my guts kicks in when I have to stop at certain locations, whether it's to get gas, whether it is to use a restroom, whether it is to get food. And I always am looking around. There, I have my main stops, but then I also have those emergency stops. So, what can you say to singles who are especially single women who may live in the city or may have to travel, especially that. I feel like my husband has taught me well with the situational awareness, but you still have those gut instincts. How can we be better prepared in the traveling space? Let's start off with that.
Well, first off, like I said, less than 1 in 7 people actually even know what situational awareness is, much less practice it. They
Mm-hmm.
may have gotten that gut feeling or that hair on the back of the neck, that
Mm-hmm.
God-given gift that we have, but they don't know what it is because nobody has educated them on it. For the last 30 or 40 years, parents stopped learning the skill. And when they didn't learn the skill and the 10 critical skills that go along with it, they could not then share how you learn that skill with their
Mm-hmm.
kids. So
Right.
our kids for generations have grown up without learning this skill.
Mm-hmm.
Being a military spouse, you have the advantage of having somebody that helped you develop that. My family, my kids are like that as well. But I'm sure you can imagine because of what I do, I pay close attention anytime that I'm out. And I guarantee you, most people that are out there have no clue what is going on around them. They're not perceptive.
Mm-hmm.
They're not paying attention to the things that you talked about. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have a process that they use to figure out, is there anything here that concerns me? And if there's
Mm-hmm.
not, what would I do in case something happens? And that's what our program is all about. The book introduces a 5-step process that I took from the Air Force. In the Air Force, it's called the OODA loop. That's observe, orient, decide, and act.
Mm-hmm.
My squadron command, we went over and we ran the air operations floor in the Air Operations Center. So we commanded the air operations in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Okay.
And we were continually having to pay attention to what the enemy was doing, pay attention to what our assets and capabilities were, observing, orienting, making decisions, and then acting and changing the plan that we had for that day.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken that and turned that into a 5-step process that we teach in our program. It's identify, assess, predict, decide, and act.
Mm-hmm.
So you already talked about how you automatically already do the first 3 steps. That's identify, assess, and predict. So
Yes.
anytime I walk in somewhere or I'm getting ready to get gas, whatever the case may be, first thing I do is I stop, look, and listen. And I do that identify phase. I look around me. I'm being perceptive.
Mm-hmm.
I am using my critical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking to see if there's anything in my area that sets off that hair on the back of the neck or that gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't see that, then now I know what normal is.
Mm-hmm.
Then I assess, right? If I'm in a restaurant, can I sit so my back's not to the door? Where
Yes.
are the exits? If I'm
Yeah.
in a gas station, have I left my car door open so that I can get in and lock it in case something happens?
Yes.
If I'm in the grocery store, am I paying attention to where the exits are and who is around me and those types of things? And then the third step is predict. So that's thinking about, so if anything happens today, what would I do?
Mm-hmm.
See, when you continually practice this process over and over and over again, it becomes something that you just automatically do.
Right.
And what you do is you're feeding what I call your lizard brain. That's the part of your brain where your body goes to under stress, where your mind goes to under stress and your body goes to. It's that muscle memory,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can only do something that you've already thought of and prepared to do. So if you haven't prepared to do anything, you won't be able to do anything. You'll be stressed, panicked, and then the decision that you make will be an emotional decision, and
Yes.
in all likelihood will be the wrong decision.
Right.
So that is the key, is enrolling in a program that over a period of time you learn how to practice this process,
Mm-hmm.
and you develop your own habits and behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things you asked me, is there anything that I can share with people out there about what they could do or those types of things?
Yes.
There are, but I want to point out a very critical part of our program
Mm-hmm.
is everybody learns situational awareness for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because it has to be based on what they're capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you and I are looking at a scenario unfolding in front of us, because of my training and background, and probably because of what I'm carrying, I'm going to behave and do things differently than you probably will.
Right.
If I walk into a grocery store and I'm with my wife and my family, my wife knows what to do to protect herself and the kids. And then she knows that as soon as I look over and I know that she's doing that part of it,
Right.
that I am going to go forward. Now, in our program, though, we have a lot of content that comes out that gives people things that they can think of, but it's just for them to then think about, okay, this is what he suggested, but what should I really do?
Right. Right.
So for example, my wife and I, for the first time in probably 2 years, were at the gas station in my truck at the same time. I was putting gas in my truck, and normally during the week, I'm putting gas in my vehicle and in her vehicle. So
Mm-hmm.
we were heading somewhere. I needed to put gas in my truck, so we went to the gas station. I do my thing. I as I drive up, I'm paying attention. I know where every single car is when I pull in. I get out, I leave my door open.
Mm-hmm.
While I'm putting my credit card and everything in, I'm paying attention to what's going on around me.
Mm-hmm.
Start fueling the car, and then I'm doing the same thing. I'm paying attention.
Right.
And because it's been a while, I walk over to my wife and I said, okay, so, I'm going to ask you, sweetheart, in this situation, what do you do when you put gas in the car? And she said, basically what you've done, when you get out of the car, you leave the car door open. You pay attention as you're refueling. If you're going to stand out, you be near the nozzle, because
Mm-hmm.
you can pull that nozzle out and spray the person if somebody comes up to you.
Yes.
But then the other thing is, if a number of people are coming up, she knows, and the reason we leave the car door open and we're right there is she can get in the car, close the door, lock the door, start
Right.
the car, and drive away if she needs to do that.
Yes.
But those are all things that she has thought of.
Mm-hmm.
If she had never thought through that process and something happened, she would have absolutely no idea what to do.
Right.
And here's the other piece. Without that situation awareness, if you're not paying attention to what's going on around you, if somebody is coming up, you're not going to see them.
Right.
Which means you're not going to have time to do those things that I just talked about.
Exactly. Exactly. One thing that really stands out to me is when we go into a restaurant, we are strategically seating ourselves where we see all exits and we have a view of the room. And one thing I've been noticing now, my situational awareness kicks in, especially with when I take my godkids. We went to see Top Gun over the summer, and something
Great
kicked
movie,
in.
by the way.
Oh, it was a phenomenal movie. I absolutely love all of Top Guns. But we were going into the movie theater, and it was a matinee. So I chose a matinee knowing there wouldn't be too many people there, summer day, et cetera, et cetera. But something kicked in while I was sitting there, and I surveyed the surroundings, and I was watching people and their emotions. They were kind of going back and forth, and I kicked in and I kind of looked around to make sure the boys were okay. Now they have been trained in situational awareness as well. Their father is a veteran child, if you will, a son of a veteran, and his brothers serve, and these boys know what it is to how to shoot a gun and all of that. So they were in tune as well. My question to you, in those situations, you have your different opportunities and how to act. But my bigger concern now is, are we, as soon as we leave our homes, as soon as we leave our neighborhoods, as we go to the supermarket, as we go to church, as we need to even go to school, and I want to talk about swatting next, do we have to live now in this mindset where were we just too complacent over time, and all of these things started happening in and around us, that we can no longer keep our heads in the sand? But are we now living in a world, as you say in the title of your book, that this needs to be on the forefront of our minds every time we leave our front door? That's the bigger question for you.
Well, today, more than 3 out of 4 people are walking around in fear. They are afraid. Their stress levels at work, their anxiety at work, their anxiety when they just go about and do their normal things is dramatically on the rise. And then that leads to a whole other set of mental health issues.
Yes. Yes.
I firmly believe that when you are prepared, that's how you overcome fear. And the other unique thing about our program is, and one of the reasons I tell people, they say, what should I do in this situation? And I turn right around and ask them, so you tell me what you think you would be able to do in this situation. Our focus isn't on how you respond. Our focus is on how you prevent. When you learn situation awareness and you don't do things that put yourself in a position to be a victim, when you get that hair on the back of the neck or that gut feeling, you trust it, you do something about it. And see, this doesn't just apply to safety. It applies to mental health, to if you have your friends, your kids that are having indicators of maybe they're being human trafficked or thinking of committing suicide. Unfortunately, today, parents of kids that have been brought into human trafficking or committed suicide, they have a lot of guilt and anger and regret, because when they go back and look at what their kids did and the actions that they were taking, they were indicators of something was not right, but they didn't do anything about it. They didn't act on it.
Right.
In my program, I talk to parents about having their kid or looking at the information that their kids are looking at on their devices, and most of them don't ever look at what they're looking at on their phones and what they're looking at
Right.
on their computers. And I
Right.
had a bank president just the other day in a program tell me that they have times during the day that they can't be on their devices. They have to give mom and dad their devices at night, and
Yep.
then they check them. And the dad found out that their son was being cyberbullied online. So they were able to talk to their son and start to work through that process.
Hmm.
And so it is not a
Hmm.
safe world out there, but
Right.
when we all learn to have situation awareness, we learn what to do.
Hmm.
And then the more people in our community learn how to do that, then
Right.
we have the empathy to want to take back the safety of our communities. We can help the police, we can help law enforcement, we
Yes.
can help the
Yes.
emergency responders,
Yes.
and we can, most people that commit crimes are looking for the easy victims, and they're looking for communities that aren't taking responsibility for their own safety.
Hmm.
And that's what, when you learn situation awareness, when the community learns situation awareness, and now you all care about the safety of the community, that's how we truly make a difference. And that's how we take back, the responsibility for the safety of our communities.
Hmm. Let me ask you, this is down at the bottom of my list, but you brought it up and I don't want to let that moment get away. The human trafficking piece, the mental health piece, and as I always hold up on my phone for those who are watching the show, the social media piece. Earlier this week, I had an educator and also a safe house mom for human trafficking victims on to talk about teen suicide, to talk about the social media issue. The very next day, I brought on a social media guru for Americans for Prosperity, and we broke it down. So the human trafficking piece, going back to that, I always say it's in our nation's backyard. It may, and it's visible, but yet are people awakened to what is really in our nation's backyard? Being off the 95 corridor here by Camp Lejeune, central location. When I was running for state house, I would meet with the sheriff's departments and they would talk about, we are a border state and there is human trafficking here.
Yep.
So as you have been laying this foundation with your book, laying this foundation with the classes and the year-long studies that you provide, what have you seen and in the prevention standpoint where we can continue to combat the human trafficking that is literally in everybody's backyard, whether they want to be aware of it or not?
Right. So yeah, human trafficking is a huge issue that continues to grow, and it's one of those I talk about in all of our presentations about how it has continued to grow over the last 10 years. As a matter of fact, it's grown 5 times in size in 10 years. Um, when you think about human trafficking, most parents aren't aware of it. They may, like I said, know that there's a human trafficking month. They may see a document
Right.
that says, look
Right.
for these indicators in your kids, right?
Hmm.
About 90% of human trafficking predators do all of their work online. So it's on the apps that our kids have, and it's in the gaming system. So that's when I use that example. When parents don't look at the devices their kids use, and they don't look at the gaming systems, they can't see those conversations that they may be having with those predators that are out there grooming them, right? So parents need to understand that it's not that they're going to get picked up on the corner of the street or in front of the school anymore. The predators are doing this online. Now, I want to put a caveat in. Human
Okay.
trafficking has dramatically gone through the roof, where kids are being taken right when they come across the border and entered into the human trafficking realm. So those predators are still doing that, but predominantly they get our kids and groom them to become and enter the human trafficking world through through the online devices. Look at the human trafficking cycle, if you will, right?
Right.
Most nonprofits and most organizations will tell parents, okay, human trafficking is a problem. Look for these indicators. But they spend most of their time trying to catch the predators, trying to rescue the kids, and then trying to give help to those kids to help get them back into society.
Hmm.
Nobody is really empowering those parents with situation awareness to be engaged with their kids, see those indicators, but then even more than that, know what to do about it. Like I said, parents have regret. They have a lot of anger because when they look back on things, there were potentially things that they could have done. And I know that personally myself. I have a very good friend of mine who had suicidal ideations. I didn't recognize him. He ended up taking his own life. And it was after I looked at that I realized I'm supposed to know everything about this. And I saw the indicators and I didn't act. Normalcy bias won in this case, where I rationalized that Mark would never do that. It's not a big deal. Right. And that's what most parents do. They have the mentality that it's not going to happen to me. Mm-hmm. And my kids would never do that. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. So we need to change that paradigm. We need to overcome the normalcy bias, and we need to empower parents to pay attention with situational awareness, to look for those indicators and then know what to do about it.
Mm-hmm. As you were talking about parents, let's go into the school situations that we're seeing around the nation, seeing the shootings, the mass shootings, seeing what is happening. And then I want to reiterate the swatting article. So like I said to you, as we opened up the show, a friend of mine lives in Sarasota County. She was out working with her colleague, and she got notification that the schools were on lockdown for swatting. And, it had her and every other parent out there in a state of shock. So the other day, phone calls caused lockdowns at schools across South Florida. What is swatting? Multiple South Florida schools were placed on lockdown on Tuesday after reports of swatting calls. These took place in Broward and Miami-Dade counties, including West Broward, Miami Central High School, and Reagan Senior High. Continued on, swatting is it a domestic terrorist making false 911 calls to provoke large responses by law enforcement? What are your thoughts to that? And what is your, are we going to see more of this? Is it a domestic terrorism maneuver, or is it, because from what I talked to with my friend yesterday, she said they cannot figure out who broke into the systems and were making these 911 calls? Is it an international, do I dare say attack? But are we going to see more of this too? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the large concerns that we have at the Paratus group. Now, if you think about it, pranking has been going on forever.
Right.
Kids,
right.
I remember when I was in school decades ago, there were calls that, there's a fire, so you had to go through the fire drill and those type of things, right?
Right.
Today, it has different consequences and potentially different meanings, especially when they're doing it and they're talking about an active shooter situation. Mm-hmm. We have to take every single one of those 100% seriously, whether it's a prank or whether it is to what you pointed out. And this is, again, one of our biggest concerns, is that the terrorists, the criminals will start to realize that they can do these things to test the response of law enforcement. Or one of our biggest fears is that the people that want to, do a bank robbery or are terrorists, they'll test the response, but then they'll either do a swatting incident to get every single law enforcement aid officer in the area to descend on that local area, which means that all of the surrounding areas no longer have any law enforcement.
Right.
That's always been one of my frustrations. If you look at the Uvalde situation, every single law enforcement officer, federal, state, local, from 50 miles around showed up at Uvalde, which meant that there was no law enforcement in the communities surrounding Uvalde. So if a terrorist wanted to do something or a bad actor wanted to do something, they could either, if it's a terrorist, they would in most likely have actual terrorists do an active shooting event so that the event is real. But now they've drawn everybody away, and now they can go do whatever they want. And our infrastructure, our electric grid, our gas grid, all of those things, other schools, perhaps the main target now has no law enforcement protection. They're not going to be able to respond to it. So it is a huge concern, and we have to take it seriously.
Mm-hmm. So in that, as we are in the beginning of the school year and then headed into the holidays, what do we say to the law enforcement? Is that where your group comes in and trains law enforcement on these acts of what we need to be doing? Or is that where your group goes into schools and has parental groups to prep the parents on what to be prepared for in the Board of Education? What does that look like to you, where we could, like you said, prevention versus response? what would you do from your military background to work with law enforcement, to work with the parents to be able to do more prevention in this space?
Yeah, so right now we really don't work with law enforcement. I
Okay.
hope to start doing that here up in North Texas and then expand that.
Okay.
But when I work with law enforcement, what I really wanted to do is a partnered program where we go out into the community so that we can educate the parents and the families on how you learn and
Hmm.
develop situational awareness.
Hmm.
When I started in the safety space, it was because of the active shooting incident
Sure.
in Parkland, Florida.
Hmm. Hmm.
And for a while, we did go in and do assessments of schools and those types of things. And the sad truth is, most of the time, I could break into the school somehow. Somebody would leave a door open, somebody would open a door for me.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so having great hardening and those types of things doesn't do any good if you don't have the habits and behaviors to make sure and the mindset
Hmm.
to look out for those things.
Hmm.
So that's what we focus on. When you learn situational awareness and you have the habits and behavior, if you have cameras, door locks, all those types of things, what you're doing there is you're creating time and space.
Hmm.
You create the ability to keep the bad person out.
Hmm.
Also with situational awareness, and this is what frustrates me, we heard that the person that did the shooting in Uvalde
Uh-huh.
had done things and said things that were indicators that he might do something like what he did.
Right.
And
Indeed.
people saw and heard those things,
Right.
yet because they either the normalcy bias came in and they rationalized, yeah, he would never do anything, or because, and most likely because they didn't have situational awareness, they weren't perceptive, they didn't critically think, they didn't do active listening when they talked to him, and because they hadn't thought through if anybody ever said anything like that, what should I do about it? I mean, we have one of the things that frustrates me is we have the see something, say something program out there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of people see something,
But they don't
but
say anything.
they have no idea what to say and they have no idea who to tell it to, right?
Well, let me ask you about that really quickly. I don't want to take you off, but that's the thing. We see something, we say something, and if we want to say, tell the local officials, are they going to just pass us, push us aside? Are they just so inundated with all of these things coming in, they can't handle the bandwidth of it? Or is it that they don't have the opportunities to be able to fight the tools to do it anymore? Is that what the bigger issue is? Because I see here in the local, arena, you hear the commissioners talking about we need to give more money to the local police department so they can do their jobs. And so this whole defunding police piece is out of control. That's and I mean, if you look at the cities like my previous home of New York City, I miss going there, but I can't really go there anymore because it's not safe. Why in the world would I want to take the train into the city knowing with everything that's going on? And the police, if I go and tell them something, they can't do anything about it. So that's what do we do when the whole see something, we can't say anything aspect? What do we do in that situation?
Right. So one of the, I think, powerful things about what I'm trying to do at the Paratus group by getting everybody in the community to learn situational awareness, it also then empowers them, like I said, to want to take responsibility for the safety of their communities.
Hmm.
And then we can have conversations with, or we can be the voice then to politicians
Hmm.
to do the right thing and make a difference. Elect those people that will actually do the things that will make us more safe.
Hmm.
To your point, defunding the police is a terrible idea.
Right.
Um, the fact that we have district attorneys and
Hmm.
organizations that are not enforcing the laws,
Right.
that's the broken window philosophy, right? If I
Hmm.
let somebody break a window and I don't do anything about it, they're now empowered to go to that next step and go to that next step. Nobody's going to do anything about it. So we
Hmm.
need to, as a community,
Hmm.
like some parents are doing on critical race theory and those types of
Yes.
things, pushing
Yes.
back on school boards, right?
Hmm.
But the more of us that get together and are empowered with this ability and understand what's going on in our communities and want to make our communities and our families and our schools and our churches and our businesses more safe, and
Hmm.
we then are the ones that are out advocating and working with law enforcement to do that,
Hmm.
that's how we make a difference. When we show these criminals that are out there and the bad actors that we're not going to put up with it, we're going to have a safe community. I have something that I call the Defended Community Initiative, where all the parents get together, the community gets together, and you're paying attention to what's going on. It's like what we used to do, 10 or 15 years ago when we didn't spend our time on our computers and our phones, and we
Right.
actually talked to our neighbors, learned about our neighbors, paid attention to when our neighbors went out of
Yes.
town,
Yes.
watched their house when they went out of town.
Yes.
Um, Real quick, that's another frustration of mine is when people travel They'll get right on social media. They'll show a picture of themselves
Yep.
on the airplane.
Yep.
And, if it's the dad that's leaving, he's just announcing to anybody that's watching his social media feed that his family is home alone.
Yep.
If the whole family does a picture that they're in Cancun, well, if anybody can figure out where they live, that house is now empty.
Exactly.
Why do we do things to advertise to people that, we can potentially be a victim?
Right.
And our family can potentially be a victim. But see, today people don't think about those things because it's not something that's been taught for 30 years.
So let me ask you about the different groups that you have set up through your group. Then also, you just mentioned that parental group as well. Where is it that are there opportunities through purchasing your book, engaging with your group, that say a group of parents in my neighborhood could gather, start and form a group because of the foundations and the teachings that you are doing and the prevention mechanism? Is that something that is readily available? So if they reached out to your group and said, we want to start a group here, how do we do it? How does that work?
Yeah, so I'm traveling around the United States, and I'm speaking to businesses, to schools, to PTA organizations, to chambers of commerce that are setting up opportunities for parents to come and get about an hour and 15-minute introduction to everything that I'm talking about.
Okay.
We also are doing that on Zoom starting next month. Twice a month, we're going to have a live Zoom event that does this same introduction.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, I've been told that I'm kind of crazy, but I do most of this for free, unless for businesses and schools and churches I charge, but for community presentations,
Sure.
I want to come out and I want to educate the community on what's going on. And then we offer them the opportunity to enroll in our program.
Okay.
And they enroll in our learning management system. For 90 days, they get micro e-learning to reinforce the development of those habits and behaviors, and to be reminded of the threats that are going on out there and things that they can do to identify suicide or human trafficking or bullying, those types of things. And then for the next 9 months, they get content once a week, because this is a perishable skill. I've been amazed that there are people that I left the military with, that I retired, are friends of mine.
Sure.
And because of their devices and the way that we live our lives today, they no longer have situational awareness. So they they have established some of the bad habits and behaviors, because they're, I get frustrated when I walk into a restaurant and everybody in that family is sitting at the table, all of them on their phones.
Yeah.
Nobody has situational awareness.
Yeah.
Love for groups across the United States to work with the Paratus group to get this into the hands of the parents. And like I said, it's a family training. The parents, we want to be able to train the younger kids, basically 9, 10 and under, because this is a contagious behavior.
Right.
I never sat down, and I bet it's your parents never sat you down and lectured you or your husband on situational awareness. But the way that you learned and picked up and developed the situational awareness habits and behaviors was because he did things, he said things, he pointed things out, and he did it so many times, it became a habit and a behavior for you, right?
Yeah, I'll just say he actually lectured me.
Oh, did he?
Yes, I have to be honest. He did lecture me, but in a good way, because he had seen, I mean, I had lived in New York, I lived in DC, I traveled to China, I traveled all over the world. And I was just this, free spirit, wanting to serve, wanting to do mission work, wanting to serve. I served on Capitol Hill and served in the White House. And then we get married, and he retires down here. And he was like, I got the lectures because I was just so, rose-colored glasses. And he was like, how in the world did you get through all of those years of doing everything and still have rose-colored glasses? So I am grateful for that lecture, because it really did wake me up. And it woke me up. And my parents never, really sat me down and did that. But when I go and visit them, and I see what's happening in Pennsylvania where they live, I see, the destruction of what's happening to the inner cities and all of that. So I am now completely in tune with when I am traveling to know what is going on around me. And I'm thankful for that, because when I married an Army guy, I didn't realize I had signed up for the Army as well. So I have learned, and I jokingly say that to him, but I am grateful for that. I am grateful for that. And it's not necessarily an anxiety piece, but like you said, it's prevention with a response if necessary.
Well, no, and in that situation, I agree with how he did that, because you were an adult You had
Yes.
established the bad habits and behaviors. So in
Yes.
order to change those habits and behaviors, there had to be some type of intervention. But
Hmm.
I'm talking about with parents talking to their young kids.
Yeah.
See,
Hmm.
my 30-year-old, when she was 14, we went into a restaurant with family friends, and her friend was going to sit in the seat that she knew her dad needed to sit in. And she told her friend, "I'm sorry, you can't sit there. My dad has to sit there."
Yeah.
And she said, "Why does your dad have to sit here?" And my daughter said, "My dad can't, has to sit so his back's not to the door. He's going to see the exits. And if anything bad happens, he's going to tell us what to do."
Hmm.
See, with situation awareness, though, from the time she was about 4 or 5 years old, I had opportunities when we went to restaurants or in the grocery store where I would point things out for her to look at and for her to pay attention to. So I'm not lecturing, but I'm looking for those learning opportunities for her to develop the habits and behaviors. So after 9 years, she had it down. She fully understood that, right?
Yes.
And then there are plenty of opportunities when, still to this day, where I'm reminding people around me of those types of things. But it's
Hmm.
it's you practicing those types of habits and behaviors and the process that we talk about. That's
Hmm.
how other people are going to pick up on that. But
Yeah.
to your point, if you're talking to high school kids or college kids,
Yes.
you need to, and we have some stuff in our program that it kind of lays out how scary things are out there and why it is important for them to develop these habits and behaviors to keep themselves and their friends safe.
Hmm. Well, no, I sit here and think about my god kids who are at Chapel Hill and NC State and those who are preparing to go to school. And I sit there and, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm glad you're getting an Ivy League or a great education, but do you realize what is going on in and around you for the protection? So you're not raped. So you're not human trafficked. So all of these things are not happening to you. I want to be, set them up for that protection and prevention, if you will. I know we are coming up on our time. I've so loved speaking with you, and I feel like there's so much more to dig into. But I want to ask you really quickly about the Walmart stores. And my friend Marlene and I were traveling to do a huge event. And she had shared with me a story about the human trafficking that tends to happen in some of the stores. And she even said to me, and I explained to her a situation I'd went through where I am tiny enough that they could have grabbed me, et cetera, et cetera. And my husband was in the store in a completely different section. And I realized I had to kick it in gear. The hair on the necks went up. I started running. And, I'm loud enough, squealy enough. You don't want to find me in a dark alley. They wouldn't have had a chance. But my concern is when we go into those situations, are I don't want to target the brand, but I am wondering from your professional experience, are there stores like that that are known for that to happen?
Uh, Most of those types of stores are the potential of that could happen. And
Mhm,
I have heard it in other stores as well.
mhm,
There's certain shopping malls where either in the mall or outside of the mall, there are
mhm.
people doing that. But that's where, when you have situation awareness and you're paying attention to what's going on around you, like what happened with you, because
Yeah.
you pay attention to what's going on around you, you get that hair in the back of the neck, but then you trust it. You know what to do
Yes.
about it. See,
Yes.
most people, because they're not paying attention, to them, they're an easy prey for the predator, which allows them to become a victim.
Mhm.
See, the more, and the other thing that goes along with that. So if I were at that Walmart and I happen to see you because I'm looking around and I see somebody watching you,
Mhm.
I'm going to do something about it. See,
Yeah.
that's how when we have the empathy
Mhm.
and we're prepared to see what's going on around us, not just to protect ourselves, but to protect
Right.
others,
Right.
we can do something about that.
Right, right. Well, on that final note, I am grateful for your service to this nation. I'm grateful for what you are doing through this book. I would love to stay connected with you. I would love to put you in touch with some amazing groups to get this message out there. Brian Searcy, the author of Prepare for the Real World. The world is not a safe place. Go to Amazon and pick it up today if you have not. And if you have been just tuning in the latter half of this interview, this will be available on edengordonmedia.com and on Rumble for you to download and listen to the tools and steps that Brian has laid out for us from the schools, from the churches, from the supermarkets. It's all about prevention and it's all about then response, but not the emotional response. And also listen to your gut instinct. Listen to the hairs on your neck. God gave those to you for a reason. Brian, thank you so much. God bless you. And I look forward to seeing you again and having you back.
God bless you. And thanks for having me on. It's been amazing.
All right. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, sir.
You too.
Bye-bye. And for all of those who have been tuning in, that has been such a powerful, powerful interview. I will be sharing this on all the social channels. People, to stay in tune to what your kids are watching on their phones. Stay in tune to the gaming systems, the online bullying, the online human trafficking. We have got to be aware of what is happening in our nation's backyard. You heard Brian say, every state's a border state. I'm saying that because of working with the sheriff's departments here in our Eastern North Carolina area. But we have got to be aware. It's common sense. It's common sense, people. We have got to be aware of what is going on around us. Something that Brian said that I just want to reiterate as we head into the final minutes of the show. When you are getting your gas, keep your door open and use the gas hose as a tool in the event something is going to happen. You can spray that gas all over that person. That is just a simple and yet common sense technique in prevention and then response. So be aware of your surroundings. When you're going into a restaurant, locate the exits. When you're going into a restaurant, sit where you can have a good view of everything going on in and around you. We are grateful for Brian's work. Make sure you go to Amazon today, pick up Prepare for the Real World. The world is not a safe place. And for all of those out there who are tuning in, I'm grateful for your support of this show at Common Sense America. I have a lot of women's groups following the show now. I have a lot of different leadership groups following the show. And in the month and a half that we have been on the air on Defenders Live Talk Radio and also live streaming, your guest suggestions, your analysis, your thoughts about this show, I'm grateful for your support. And on that, tomorrow, we're going to be talking about a very heavy issue that the Family Research Council in Washington, D.C. Spoke about the other night at Cornerstone Church in Virginia, Northern Virginia, right outside of our nation's capital. And it's called, What is Christian Nationalism? In that term that is being used in the mainstream and legacy media. We will have Dr. Mark Harris, who is with the Family Research Council, join us for the full segment tomorrow to break down the town hall that included former Congresswoman and former presidential candidate Michelle Bachmann. It also included Tony Perkins and Gary Hamrick, who is the pastor of Cornerstone. So we will be breaking that down tomorrow. Also, remember, Friday is remembering everybody deployed, honoring our veterans, and recognizing our military and their families. We are here in the Camp Lejeune, Cherry Point area. Also, Fort Bragg is only 2 hours away from here, and also Seymour Johnson Air Force Base is only about an hour and a half from here. So remember those who are deployed, and also focus on military, family, and the hidden heroes of our veterans through the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, and also the Gary Sinise Foundation. All amazing groups to be a part of, to volunteer, to engage with. And also this morning from my media business, I did put out a press release, and it was called Ever Vigilant, and it is on leadership and legacy, written by Dr. Jack London and his wife, Dr. Jennifer London. It is available on Amazon as well, and make sure you pick up a copy. Dr. Jack London was a naval aviator, class of 59, United States Naval Academy, but also grew up in Oklahoma and went on to be a Fortune 500 business leader before he passed last year. His legacy of leadership on entrepreneurial spirit is a powerful read and Ever Vigilant. Make sure you go and pick it up today on Amazon. It is available, and it is all over the news this morning as we are talking about business leadership steps for those who are graduating from university, who are going into a new line of work, or who are just looking for additional professional development. Check out Ever Vigilant. It is also just a powerful read, and you feel like you're sitting right next to Dr. Jack London as he tells you his stories and his legacy of leadership. So I am grateful to have the opportunity to represent the London family with Ever Vigilant. As we have 10 minutes left on the show, I also wanted to thank Will Baker, the town of Cape Carteret's mayor, and his amazing music that he has given this show. We are grateful for I-95 as we listen to it this morning. And also, I just wanted to remind you, we are, my goodness, where's my clock counter? Let me just double check. We have midterm elections right around the corner. We are at 25 days. If you have not registered to vote, please get out and vote. Please educate yourself on the issues. Please understand what is happening in your nation's backyard, whether you live in California, whether you live in Idaho, whether you live in the great state of Texas, North Carolina, Florida, et cetera, et cetera. You have got to understand who the local leaders are and who will be running and representing you both at the local level, state house, Senate, and Congress. So get involved and understand the issues. Also, the voter guide by North Carolina, familyvoter.com came out. I'm just holding it up for those who are watching the show. Make sure you get a copy, pick up a copy. Also, go to Board of Elections and download. You can download your information and a sample ballot. So make sure you are doing that in preparation for what is ahead with the elections. And we also have as how we vote and who we vote for and who wins in these elections is going to impact 2024. You have got to be aware of that. Like I said, it's common sense, people. It is common sense. I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be right back with our final news notes of the day as we head into this amazing Thursday. I will be right back. And it is about 5 minutes until 10 a.m. Eastern Time. This is Common Sense America. I am Eden Hill. And just a final couple notes for the show today. Just as a reminder, Family Research Council, Dr. Mark Harris will be joining us tomorrow for the full segment to talk about what is Christian nationalism. Also, just a reminder, Tuesday, October the 18th, the Real Anthony Fauci movie will be alive and well for all of you to check out. We had film producer Jeff Hayes yesterday join us, and it is just a powerful film in correspondence with the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. book, The Real Anthony Fauci. We do hope that you will check out the website and download the film. So it is free and you can watch it on October the 18th. Thank you to Jeff Hayes Films Productions. He is a powerful leader in his own right. Also on Monday, we are talking to Michigan Board of Education candidate, Dr. Linda Lee Tarver. She will be talking about her candidacy in the state of Michigan, running for Board of Education. She is against indoctrination. She is against CRT. She's against the transgender agenda. And she also speaks very highly of what Arizona is doing for the school choice and the school systems. So you will not want to miss that interview. Also next week, we will be talking with young voices on all things politics. All things are on the table. They are a phenomenal group bringing amazing writers and educators to the table. And we will be talking with at least 3 young voices next week, all from different aspects of what is happening in the Biden administration, inflation, gas prices. We're going to be all topics, like I said, are on the table. So we will be talking next week with them. And then while I am in a different location, as you all know, I'm going to be with my family next week. We are going to be doing family and home. It is a switch on home and family from what Hallmark used to do. By popular demand, yes, I do not know how to bake an apple pie. My mom's great at it. So we're going to be filming some family and home episodes, pumpkin patches, apple picking, harvest time, harvest family. All things so important to the dynamic of our lives is the family. It's the family unit. I am so grateful for my family unit. So we're going to be having some fun with my mama Mia and my father in Pennsylvania. We're going to be having a blast. Mums, pumpkins, everything in between. And then upon return, my dearly beloved is going to help me start setting up for, yes, Christmas. October 31st, the trees go up, and you will be privy to some of the tree decorating and Hungarian baking and holiday events that happened here in Eastern North Carolina, especially one that is very near and dear to our neighborhood's heart is the hospice event that we put on every first Saturday of December. And that is decorating the homes in our neighborhood for a drive-through and raising money for the local hospice. And that is put on by Croatan High School, and we are grateful for them. On that final note, remember what I always say, put on the full armor of God. It's time to get to work, people. God bless you. Have a great Thursday. We will see you tomorrow.